All right. Hello. 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 Hello, women. Hello. Welcome. Hi. I want to talk about birth control in this live. So hang on. It's going to be me sharing my truth and experiences. It's going to be me sharing women's stories and patterns. And none of it is medical advice. None of it is judgment. It's just information because as women, we deserve to live in full vitality and health. And we deserve to know what we're putting in our bodies, how it affects us, how our bodies work in general, and what we can do to support them. So, birth control, the truth about birth control, it's definitely framed as a safe contraceptive option. Um, Birth control is wildly popular, um, very thoroughly used by women, especially younger women, women in my age, in their mid 20s and younger. Birth control is prescribed to women for all sorts of reasons. It's There's many types, of birth control. So I'm talking about birth control. I mean, pharmaceutical, synthetic, um, birth control comes in many forms. It comes in a pill, comes in a shot, comes in an implant, which is actually what I had. It's something that goes in the arm. Um, it can also be an IUD, something internal that is inserted into the up into the cervix. And there's two types of IUDs. There's copper, and then there's hormonal IUDs. So that's an overview of the types. Let me know, comment which type you have had or know or have experience with. For me, it was the implant, and it's become sort of a coming of age thing in our culture, in our dominant society, that young women, when they become, a lot of girls I knew in high school were on hormonal birth control starting at like 16. That's considered like a socially acceptable, sexually active age. And of course, like everyone is, you know, wanting to avoid unwanted pregnancy or teen pregnancy, which can be very difficult for many reasons. And so, birth control becomes sort of this thing that women um, are initiated into by themselves. Like they want for it. I wanted birth control. I The appeal part of it too is that you don't need to worry about what your cycle in some cases, like worry whatever, but you don't have it doesn't come your cycle doesn't come in many forms of birth control. Like, here's an anecdote. um, a friend of mine, she just got out of a relationship, and we were talking, and she was saying that how all these things that her ex-partner would do, it just they seemed normal, but she just didn't know, and so she was asking all these different questions. And one of the things he would do was he just didn't understand periods at all. Like, she would get her period and he like was confused, he didn't get it, he didn't understand how long it was going to last or what was even happening. And she was so confused, like, how do you not know about this, and because he had told her he'd had other female partners. And you know what he said is that he went to college in Arizona, one of the large public schools there, and all of the women there had hormonal IUDs, and they never got their period and they never bled, and he had never experienced like a woman doing that. And if that isn't the most tragic thing to me, like just hearing that, with no judgment, but the what when you understand the menstrual cycle and how powerful it is, that idea that these hundreds, thousands of women young women are completely missing out on this experience of menstruating to me, it's heartbreaking. Um, and also just on a biological level, so women go through menarche, right, which is our first bleed, and it's said that for at least, and I mean at least, these are conservative estimates, for at least 5 years after menarche, our initial bleed, the body is recalibrating to this new way that we're going to organize ourselves. So those like immediate 5 years after menarche are the ovaries and the brain literally building a bridge and building a connection and a highway where they share information. And that's why so many women, when they're young and they begin menstruating, it can be really irregular. They can skip a month, have really elongated cycles, have spotting. And it's because all of those irregularities are just signs that the body is doing what it's supposed to be doing, right? The body is getting in touch and building a way of communicating. And this is how like neural pathways get ingrained in us. And it's our natural blueprint as female bodies to do this. So it's nothing that needs to be interfered with. And so for women who are going on the pill at 16, if I didn't get my first bleed until I was 12, and so it's like, well, for those 4 years, like I'm building a relationship in my body between my ovaries and my brain, and it's interrupted. And I feel lucky I didn't go on birth control until I was in college and I was older, and I only stayed on it for a very short amount of time. I think a little bit less than a year, like maybe 8 months. And for so many women, that's not the case. Maybe you're one of them, and maybe you went on hormonal birth control at 16 and you never went off it. There are women who stay on it for a decade or two, and um, that experience, if especially when started at an early age, is disconnecting us from our natural cycle. And the power of our natural cycle, I can't even begin to address in this live. I mean, I'll touch on it, but I won't do it justice. And so if you want to learn more about the menstrual cycle and its magic and its mystery and its majesty, then please check out my course. It's available on my website. You can check it out in my bio. There's a link, and it's anyways 2 hours of me sharing about the menstrual cycle and why it is such a sacred, beautiful experience for us women. And it's $33. It's 2 hours. It's pre-recorded, and you can have access to it today. So just let me know about that. But we'll for the sake of this live, we'll accept that everyone here understands the sacredness of the menstrual cycle, and how it is a portal for magic for women. And so think about these women who are going on it at such a young age. Think about, so yes, women want to go on it to prevent pregnancy, and then that's a big thing, and to not worry about it. That's what I said, right? Like my implant, I don't want to worry about it. And there's other reasons too, that women go on hormonal birth control. Um, for example, there is maybe it's recommended by their doctor. This is an interesting one. Doctors will recommend hormonal birth control and prescribe it to you for any number of reasons: for painful periods, for heavy bleeds, for intense cramps, for acne, for tender breasts, for any of the things that are cycle signs meaning like signs that our natural cycle is in imbalance. When a Western doctor sees that, they will prescribe you a birth control, which, by the way, further interrupts that natural biological process that's happening within us that our body knows how to do. Our body was built to do this. And to avoid pain, to avoid pregnancy, to essentially, it can be used, I think, and why it's so appealing to the modern woman is you get to bypass a little bit of the biological reality of being a woman. And, I think that in the past that was appealing to me, that I could not have to, have these hormonal fluctuations and go through these ebbs and flows. And, And I had one of the stronger ones, which is an implant, and the implant and the shot, these are stronger forms of birth control than, say, the pill. So the pill, you're taking a small amount of normally progestin, which is synthetic progesterone, which our body naturally makes. And this progestin is tricking your body into thinking that you're pregnant, which then means the body's not releasing an egg because there's no need to reproduce. We've already got one in the oven, which isn't true. The body thinks that. And so then maybe for a week out of the month, the woman will take a sugar pill. It's like a placebo. And that pill is just, you might bleed on that pill, right? And so women will say, oh, no, I don't have the hormonal ID. I have the pill and I still bleed. I'm still having my period, I'm still connected to my natural cycle. And the truth is that that bleed is what we would call a withdrawal bleed. So it's not a true menstruation, which would happen after a healthy ovulation, and then the egg dies and becomes the corpus luteum, and then it's going to be dropped into the womb, shedding that lining, and it's all going to drop, drop, drop. What's happening during that sugar pill experience is that the body is building lining because it thinks it's pregnant, and then all of a sudden it's not, and so it sheds that, and that's completely different than an ovulatory menstruation. And so these withdrawal bleeds are kind of creating maybe a little bit of a delusion. I also you can get various forms of withdrawal bleeds on different hormonal birth controls, but all of them are essentially, they're still deeply interrupting your cycle, and they are also giving you the false idea that you are menstruating when you're not. And I don't think women know this. So if you didn't know this, like I didn't know this, and I don't think people tell us this, and the doctors don't tell us this, and doctors don't fully understand, the side effects of birth control are long and exhaustive. They include some of the most shocking, all acne, painful menstrual cramps, all of the cycle signs we already talked about, heavy bleeds, regular bleeds, spotting, clitoral shrinkage, which is literally the clitoris getting up to 30% smaller in mass. The hair loss. Hair loss is a side effect of hormonal birth control, publicized, and these are I would consider very, very serious alterations to make to the body. And so, every time we're making decisions, we have to weigh, what is worth it. But just knowing these are like the listed side effects, and then and this is going to be a long-term medication, right? This is going to be something women plan to be on, not just for a couple months, but multiple years, if not decades. So, we want to make informed choices about this. And I just want to add the other note about side effects, which is a little nuanced, which is that, side effects are yes, they're tested for, right? But they also have to be reported. And so in order for, women, the way women are socialized, right, is to be docile and dainty, and that is what's digestible for society. Okay. And if we're anything but that, and we step into our true power and our true cyclicality, which has all of the spectrums of us, that can be really socially unacceptable. And so a lot of women aren't going to come out and say, oh, this is making my left breast really, really tender, and I'm sort of feeling like just this really big drop in emotions. And women, that's not going to be taken seriously in a medical setting. Like I've been to the doctor. I know what it's like within the medical system, and that's not like something that a doctor would seriously value, because not they're looking for things that are going to affirm what they've learned, right? And so challenging medications can be really difficult, and especially for women, it's not like we're going to come out and report all these side effects. So here are just a few stories about some side effects. The first is just my own, which is that I can't even explain to you, like I'm such a deeply happy person, and I feel, I have ebbs and flows, but I overall feel really, really secure in my happiness, my joy. And when I was on hormonal birth control, I began to experience, very, very intense mood swings that would take me to like really depressing lows. And I felt really down and really like um, kind of disassociative about my moods, and that was like a very real thing I noticed, and one of the reasons I wanted to get off of it, and something I have not experienced to that same degree since then. A lot of women have experienced depression and low moods, and I think that's also to add to the side effect challenges is like, how do we know what is connected, and women so many times will just sweep something under the rug, like, oh, this is, I guess, just how I am, I'm a little down. Such a sad story. A friend broke up with her partner, and when asked why, she said, I got on this new birth control and it made me really depressed, and he broke up with me. And it's like, wow, like, we don't even, like, the effects of our mood and what that has on our life and our quality of life and our relationships, like, that's priceless. um Another side effect of birth control is oh, I lost my train of I was talking about mood, and I was worried about that because depression. Oh, well, I was gonna say, uh, sex drive can also go down while on birth control, and our libido can be controlled by our hormones. And I guess I want to dive into, like, um, why side effects are a problem, and the irony that the side effects of birth control are all also some of the reasons it's prescribed, right? So, like, you could be in a doctor's office and say, I have really painful cramps or whatever, and that could be why you're prescribed it, and that could also be something you experience because you take the medication. Um, and you know what, for whatever reason you take birth control, but I've heard of women, give me a ton of reasons, and whatever choice you choose to make, as long as it's best for you, that's all that matters. But so many women have told me, well, I was off of it, and my bleeds were really heavy and really intense and painful, and so I got on it. And I even asked one woman, have you ever thought about going off? And she said, I got off hormonal birth control and I went back on because my bleed was so bad. And I knew I had a friend who, she went off hormonal birth control and bled for a month straight month of bleeding, and then wanted to get back on it, right? Because of course you want to get back on hormonal birth control now that you don't want to bleed for an entire month, which is ridiculous. So it's like, okay, well, it's 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 a band-aid. That's what I want to say. It's a band-aid. And so it's like, well, okay, you can choose the band-aid for yourself, but just know that that problem did not go away. It was covered, it was masked, it was your focus was on something else, but that problem is still there, and that's still something your body is experiencing, and you're going to have to deal with if you do ever choose to get off of it. And if you do choose to become a mother and have children, like, that's something very, very real to think about. And what experience is that going to be like? Our menstruation is in its own way a practice for our pregnancies and our birth, and everything that goes beyond that, because it is that cycle of life and death. So there's so much to consider. um, and I just invite you, if you are on hormonal birth control, to just ask yourself, what could be the possible effects of it on me? Does any of this ring true? And or have you noticed anything? And trust your instincts, like, we're so intuitive, and we know our own bodies best. So you know what's right and what's synthetic, and if you don't, that's okay too, and that's just because it's a blurry line. But the more we tune in, and this is what I want to tell women at the end of the day, is like, as we reclaim our health, which is the revolution, by the way, as we're experiencing, like, this overprescription of birth control, right? And we understand that it takes us away from our natural and I believe divine flow. that we women are being robbed of our biological rites of passage. That there are these experiences and these sacred primal acts that we go through as females, and we're being medicalized out of them. They're being stolen from us. We are, numbed out and drugged out through them. And the deep sadness of this is that that's where our power lies as women. That's where our intuitive yin magic is within the function of our beautiful bodies, the life and the death, the cycling that I spoke about. All of that happens in here. And when we drug that away, um, we're not able to have what I know are the most transcendental, meaningful experiences of our lives. And those are being taken from us, and we're we're signing up for it, because of the information that we have. And so I want to get out this information, more information, that we women are so powerful, and our power is in here. I'm holding my womb space like in here, and being able to tune into that. It's not possible with this interference, and with these pharmaceutical drugs. It's not possible, okay? And because to its fullest extent, it to go deep, deep, deep to the soul level of our body. We're going to get in there, and there's going to be gunk, and there's going to be crunchy, sticky, because we're drugging ourselves out of our primal reality. And I didn't want to think about it. When I went on the implant, knowing what I know now, I would never make that choice again. But I made it, and I I see how that is my journey, and that was for me. And with the implant, I wanted to not think about it. I wanted it to not be top of mind, that I'm a woman and I bleed, and that my relationship to that, is indicative of my energetic state, and my actual health, my actual female health, how I think of womanhood. So it's all connected, and I saw it as like, I want to separate. I want to not be a part of that. And that is me, and I'm that, and that's the harmony and the life and the dance of it all. And so that reframing for me was like, and if anyone, I hope, has a realization about what you're doing on an individual level, and then also how we're collectively as women, treating our experience in this world. um, Even the idea of the name birth control, like this idea of domination, like I'm going to control something that is inherently wild, is inherently free, is inherently this raw, um, thing that has its own desire that lives through it. We cannot control it. It chooses. It's living, and breathing and being, and has agency, and it's its own, and there's no control. And so, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that here is an alternative to birth control, because what I believe is I want to offer like an alternative to the entire concept and paradigm that birthed birth control, or that created this idea that that's even something desirable or necessary. And I want to challenge that entire paradigm, because it's like, you know what I practice now, I wouldn't call it birth control, but I feel in tune with my body. I track and chart what is going on with my body and with my mind and my heart, my soul, and I record that. and I'm able to observe my ebbs and flows and understand what is happening in me at different times, how to support that, and when it's maybe less optimal to have unprotected intercourse with my male partner if I'm not desiring pregnancy. And it's like, I wouldn't call that fucking birth control. Like, that's this whole other experience. Like, I'm not even saying, like, let's use birth control. Like, I'm saying, like, let's step into this understanding of what it really truly means to be a self-responsible woman, and practice radical responsibility and be in my own integrity with my female body. That's what I'm talking about. And that's the medicine. And that's why I'm not going to make a post like, oh, here's an alternative to birth control, and it would be appealing, but it's not an alternative. It's a new universe. You've got to leave behind what we've been taught by this Western allopathic system, that we need to control our hormones, or that our hormones are even ours to control, instead of like something that we just support, and something that we are able to create supportive lifestyles and supportive habits, because of, and not we control it. And that's my dream for us women. And I know it's possible. And so I want that for you, dear women, and I want that for me, and I'm on it, and you're on it too. And wherever we are, the journey is perfect and complete, and you're already there. And what you just need to know is, like, I'm here to support you. There are women here to support you. If you're on hormonal birth control, ask questions, ask other women. Be be critical. We live in a patriarchal society, and so much of what we do was not designed for our female bodies. And being aware of that, for me, once I knew, it was like relief. I was talking to a woman the other day, and she was just saying, like, oh my God, when I realized that's why all of these things, that's why I felt uncomfortable, and it was inconvenienced, and like it wasn't quite right, is because this society was literally not built for us. And even the things that are framed in our favor aren't. They aren't. And that's the truth of the truth, and nobody wants to hear that. But it's like, even the things that we think, oh wow, birth control, it's women's liberation, it's sexual freedom. And what is it really? What is it really? And we have to be critical. We have to be critical of anything that is birthed out of this patriarchal dominative culture, because it's not with our best interests in heart. It's not. And I know there's nothing about individuals. Okay, it's just, these are bigger things than one person or even one profession. It's a whole fear